you to tell me about your practice, because this is such an important time and I want to dig deep into it. Talk about it.
Sure. Yeah. So Zula Fit is a mind, body, soul, fitness, and wellness community. Primarily I work with women ages 40 and up, though certainly if you're kind of on your way to 40, you're starting to think about these issues as well. But it really is a genesis of me doing this work myself over a number of years,
Yes.
you know, living my own talk, so to speak. And the business itself had sort of iterations over the years as I continued to evolve. And then about 5 years ago, it started to really connect. So Zula is it's just parts of my name, right? So Lara Zuehlke and then Z-U-L-A.
Sure.
So it's really about helping women make peace with food, come back home to their bodies, and then feel from that sense of empowerment of letting go of the, maybe perhaps it's physical weight, or perhaps it's emotional weight, or perhaps it's just the creative weight of I have something more in me that I want to express. So really this is just a path to helping women gain life.
Exactly.
Because when we're in a place in our lives where we're feeling weighed down, we feel like there's a song in my heart. In fact, I knew it was time for me to bring this work into the world. Several years ago, I was standing at the Louvre in Paris, and I was looking at an Impressionist artist. And so many of the Impressionists, you would see on their little cards about how they had this brilliant work and they were brilliant artists, but they wouldn't let their work out because of the time, because they were coming out of, you know,
Yes.
very traditional times, and they had this crazy art. And so I remember standing there and looking at this painting, and I just got these tears in my eyes because I was like, I can't die with my story inside of me, nor can any of the women around me that have so much more to offer in the world, but yet feel stuck and weighed down because they don't necessarily know how to move through the experience of being in their body. Because when we don't trust ourselves to feed ourselves, to
Yes.
nourish ourselves, we have a really hard time really trusting ourselves in life, because food is primal. And
Yes.
we grow up with so many sort of distorted ideas of what food is, and we're so focused on what we're eating, we don't often understand why. And so in that why, we can get really stuck because we don't really understand that we're using food to sort of connect and cope with life in ways that aren't necessarily the healthiest.
No, and we won't. So you went on your first diet at
Age 10.
what year was that?
That would have been around 1984.
All right, so 84, you're 10 years old, and you get a chance to, and somehow your body image or whatever said that wait a minute, this is...
Yeah, it was, I wish I could say it was just like one moment, although I will say that was around the time that Weight Watchers really came out.
You bet.
And my mom had come home. There was a Weight Watchers group forming at our little church. I grew up in a very small town. And I remember her bringing home, I mean, it looked like Candyland because it was like a card deck and everything had colors and everything was associative to these colors. And you swap these things, and I was sort of fascinated. Now, before that, she always kept a stash of, do you remember the figurines, the bars? They were like little wafer bars. I thought they were candy, you know, I thought they were very fun. But I think on some level, you know, I sort of internalized this, that if my mom was doing this and that she was sort of living in this way, then perhaps, you know, and I started developing a story around that time internally of, I was always a big kid. I mean, I was tall, I was very athletic, I played a lot of sports, I was a tomboy. And so I already sort of struggled with where did I fit, because I wasn't little boned and really tiny like the other girls. And so I think I just deduced that, well, this is what women do, and this is what I need to do to fix this problem of feeling not right in my body. And so it's that idea of fixing that I think a lot of women get stuck into, that get pulled into, well, I feel this sense of not rightness in my body, so a diet is the way to serve me, right?
Absolutely, and that will fix what I'm looking for. That'll fix, and that's the thing. An external will fix what is this hole inside of me. Right.
The Buddhists talk about the idea of suffering, and that we often feel like we have a hole in our soul, and that we use symbolic substitutes in order to feel that, right? To feel that hole in our soul. And that's really what it's about. But certainly at age 10 or 15, or when I was borderline anorexic, or 25, I didn't have the consciousness yet to really see that that this wasn't about the food at all. What it was really about, when we seek those external substitutes, we really seek relief, to have a feeling of relief, and we seek connection, more divine connection, because we don't feel connected in our bodies. We don't feel that sense of I'm okay. And so I think there's a lot of issues that come up because of that. And so we don't really know how to trust myself with food, because I'm using this food as a way to cope. I mean, and it's one of the most primal things that we have, even as little children, is our sense of control of like, no, I'm not going to eat that food. Like, so I'm going to throw a fit about it, right? And so I think so then by the time we land 40, 50, 60 years old, we've probably struggled through countless numbers of diets, countless pounds gained and lost, as I had. But on July 6, 2017, after even all of this training and all of this self-work, I was still feeling weighed down at that time of my life. And it was as if I just got the cosmic 2x4, and it just started becoming very abundantly clear that it was time to put a framework, to put feet to my own prayers, to develop a system. And so the work that I do is really around 4 key pillars, though I have tools and a free coaching program that can help women get started, because it's a really, it's a lot of dismantling of the old paradigm that has to happen, and that has to come with really being willing to just lean in and go on this imperfect journey of really coming back home to yourself.
It's totally, I mean, just like in the 12-step movement, that is a spiritual, it's a spiritual point. There is a power, whatever that is. That could be the group, it could be a sponsor, it could be whatever. But there's a power greater than we are, because we are powerless. That we are powerless, left to our own devices, to be able to say that. And the powerlessness, the part that really resonates with me, is the idea is that my life has become unmanageable. Why? Because people, places, and things aren't manageable. By definition, I can't control you. I can't get you to fill that particular place within me.
Yeah. Well, but that's what a lot of us do with food, shopping, drugs, alcohol, you name it. And so I'm really, though, very focused in on the food aspect, because it is, again, because I think even if you just look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, if you look at this idea of can I trust myself as an eater, then how do I trust myself in the world? And so that's the foundational pillar upon which all of those other needs are met or unmet.
What a great way to enter into the spiritual world, is through something that we must do. Yeah.
Well, it is, because it is a very spiritual, eating is very communal, it's very tribal, it's very communal, it's very soulful. One of my favorite sayings is that we're taste buds for God. And it's that idea that at a more holistic level, we are in that divine expression. And so when we forget that and we begin eating, we kind of tune out, we disconnect from our bodies, we're not in that presence, because we're off somewhere else. And so I think because for so many women, foods become this sense of shame, of very rigid rules, and those rules are always changing based on whatever fad diets come out. I mean, I arrived in my mid-30s when I entered the world of food psychology coaching, and really started studying dynamic food psychology, of realizing, like, my whole life I'd been handed these rules that just didn't work for me, because I was like, I don't want to live in this way, in this very narrow box. And I knew that as I leaned into my spiritual practices, I knew this wisdom was inside of me. In fact, we have more wisdom in our gut region. We have over 100 billion neurons in our, 100 million, I'm going to get it wrong, but lots of neurons in our belly, right? More than even in our brain. That's why you'll hear it called the belly brain. And in the energy world, we talk about the third chakra as the seat of personal power, is because this is your inner sun. The third chakra governs your whole digestive area. So your personal power, your sense of personal power, is very synonymous to how you feel metabolically. So it's the saying that we have in food psychology coaching of, your personal power is equal to and synonymous to your metabolic power, right? So how you digest food is how you digest life. And so a lot of us have gotten really disconnected. And of course, there's lots of other layers to this, right?
Sure.
Certainly there's the emotional, but then there's also things like food quality. And am I choosing foods that feel nourishing in my body? Am I, eating too close? My whole thing is we don't count things. We don't, there's no rules like that, but it's really about eating as close to the source as possible in a way that's sustainable. And I think that's the other key piece, is that this isn't a journey of like, let me just get to the next goal, right?
Right.
It's really about, how am I showing up for the rest of my life? How am I aging into my best life? Like, how am I stepping forward into my greatest experience? Because it's not too late. I'm writing the rest of my story from this moment on.
And that's one of the things that I love about this particular slice from 40 on to the women that you're working with, because these are the change makers. These are the ones that are really going to, all right, the basic children, while you still can have a child, but in general, the childbearing age is over. Now it's the time to really be able to be the change makers in the world. We're seeing it. We're seeing it on the presidential stage. We're seeing it at the legislative, at the corporate stages. What a rich thing! And yet, it's fraught with self-image challenges during that time.
Yeah, well, I think because so many women, and I watched this, I don't have children of my own, but I watched with my mom by the time she hit 45, she was working on a doctorate, and as we started leaving, you could see her sort of grappling with her sense of self. Like, all of a sudden, my identity as a mother has now shifted. I just watched the movie Otherhood over the last week, and it's that idea of
Arquette and all that.
It's like, where did I go?
Terrific. Please, God, I love that.
It's a great film. But I think it speaks to that idea of like, and again, since I don't have children, I just sort of have watched on a peripheral level, like all of this happening. But I think it's that sense that even in my own life, of you're constantly in an evolution, right? Yes. You wake up, and I kind of tend to think of my sort of midlife wake up around the early 30s, where a lot of people have at 40 or 50, but we tend to think of these things as like midlife crisis. No, it's just a midlife awakening, because you've lived in this one model, in this one idea of who you thought you were supposed to be, and then all of a sudden, as your life starts to pivot, it's an awakening of, where am I in my soul? Am I hungry? Where am I hungry for something more? And how can I show up and express that more in me, in the world, in a profound way? For some women, it's starting a nonprofit. For some women, it's writing a book. For some women, it's going off and teaching school or whatever, like changing their paradigm, because we're constantly in evolution. And I think the woman that I heard an interview with, Jane Fonda, not too long ago on the Oprah's got a masterclass podcast that's fantastic with all types of artists and change makers. And Jane Fonda said it so beautifully that when she arrived at 59, she realized that she had been living her whole life sort of running from her past, very troubled past with her mother, and kind of contentious, distant relationship with her father, Henry Fonda. But she arrived at 59 realizing, I don't really know who I am. And I'm just now entering the second chapter of my life, if you think about, the phases of your life. So who am I? So she said she spent an entire year just digging into being an archaeologist in her own family history to better understand the pathologies and the identities that she had been handed. And she did talk a lot about her own struggles with anorexia and bulimia and this idea of being this perfect woman. And and I think for so many of us, it's coming to terms with the beauty of our own imperfection.
So
and being
where
perfect
are you in this journey? Because you're about to, because as your business is growing, as your publicity, as you're saying yes to the world, you're going to get a chance to experience things that you were either having either you'd held yourself back from, or you're having, so where are you?
Yeah, well, and quite frankly, that's why it took me a while. I mean, it's why I did this training, 10 years ago. I started iterating and teaching classes, and, we didn't have podcasts that didn't really come on the scene. I do have a podcast now called Fit Over 40. where I talk about these issues. But it's been my own journey, you know, as I mentioned, July of 2017. I mean, that was the whack. It was, you know, there's no more waiting for you. And I focus in my work not just on the physical weight, but the WAIT, all the waitings that we do in life, that we sort of hold ourselves back from. So I'm very much in the middle of this. I'm very much living it. This isn't like I've ascended to some place where I've gotten there. Like, it is an evolution, right?
This is what makes it so exciting.
Yeah.
This is what makes it exciting to talk to you, because I would much rather meet you now for me as you are in the process of unfolding, rather than a fait accompli.
Yeah, yeah. It's just fun. I'm having fun. This is my soul's work. This is my heart work. This is my rest of my story. You know, I spent the past 22 years in marketing and editorial production and journalism, and I love it, and it's wonderful.
Yes.
But I knew probably about 10 years ago, it's like, you know, there's something more. And I think sometimes that stirring we feel for something more, we mistake it for a lot of other things. And that sort of divine discontent is, like I like to call it, of there's something more in me that wants to come forward. And how can I let that forward in the world? And so, you know, for me, it is very much living this. And so I put the framework into practice that I teach, and through that process, I've let go of, you know, 40 pounds of physical weight and lots more of emotional weight and creative weight. In the time, you know, I published a book and published my novel that I had been sitting on for years, and so it is very much a creative journey. You know, I tend to believe that our creative expression and physical expression are two sides of the same coin, because we are that God stuff in expression, right? We are that divine stuff in expression. And so when we don't feel like we have the creative license to let our light into the world, we get really stuck. And I got really stuck for a number of years.
Oh, totally.
And so, you know, I've been very much consciously, intentionally, on purpose living this work for the past a little over 2 years. And, you know, and I feel it. And I don't look the same. I don't show up the same. You know, I don't think about myself the same.
How has your self-image changed? I mean, my prayer to the universe is, help me to be more compassionate with myself.
Yeah.
Help me to be gentle with myself the way I would with a puppy or a kitten, or, you know, or a child, or you.
Yeah.
I can be tremendously gracious to you, and yet to me I'm vile and virulent and awful, and so that process of shifting that inside.
Yeah, it's a journey. You know, I think it's part of our human experience to reconcile our humanity and our beingness. Right, we are human beings, and I realized that part of my shift for me was starting to really identify with my beingness and allowing my beingness to be the driver of this, the vision of this, not my humanity. Certainly my humanity is very important in it, but leaning into that larger calling, right, that divine calling. You know, several years ago, as I was really starting to unpack and you know, really heal a lot of the old body image and the old diet mentality, I was journaling one morning. I'm a huge advocate of journaling. It's a big part of the work that I do with the women I work with. And so I was sitting there one morning, and at this time in my life, I was enacting behaviors like overeating and binge eating and binge drinking, because I was so desperately trying to figure it out. You know, I was grappling with trying to hold on, and as I was sitting there, as I was sitting there and just in this quiet moment, it was this idea of getting this picture of me. So I found this picture of me when I was a little infant, and I was a little round-faced, you know, baby with no hair, and I put it on my refrigerator. And every time that I would hear that voice, that self-criticism, that self-judgment, that self-denial, I'd go to that little baby me on the refrigerator and envision me saying that to that little child, and I couldn't do it. It just sat and wept. And it's that level of self-compassion and self-love that I actively bring to myself, because in many ways we're still those little children that we've learned all these behaviors and all these things in order to cope with a world that we didn't quite feel quite right in. And depending on the level of trauma one may have experienced, or the level of just upset, there's a lot of stuff. And food becomes an escape for so many people.
It does.
And so Certainly, I'm not versed in very extreme issues of bulimia and overeating. You know, there's lots of different healing modalities and groups for that. I'm really focused on working with women who have kind of been in that middle fray of, you know, feeling somewhat, you know, like I kind of like myself today, and maybe I really love myself in this one moment. But, you know, and the other thing I'd say, Dennis, is that one of the other continuums that I work along is this idea that we can't move from, you know, going from a space of loathing to loving ourselves overnight. It is a journey. And the way I tend to think of it as, you know, we've got fear on one end and love on the other. Well, the middle place to be is curiosity. So the more curious that we can become about ourselves, of I wonder why I do this, or I wonder why I think this way, or I wonder why I eat this food at this time because it makes me feel better. Wonder where that came from. So the more we can be in curiosity, the more we can lighten up on ourselves. And the more we can lighten up on ourselves, we can start to teeter in that space of looking back of like, oh, I kind of like that about myself. I kind of like that I'm curious, and I kind of like that I'm playful, and I kind of like that I'm learning. You know, I think it's very much a practice of learning, of unlearning what we, Adashante, who is a spiritual teacher, talks about spiritual evolution. I'm going to mess up the quote, but it's the practice of unbecoming that which we are not.
Yes.
And so much of it is starting to dismantle and disconnect from that which we are no longer, letting go of that old story and deciding what story do I want to write now, you know.
And you get a chance to be there with your story rather than having someone define it for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's the thing about the media.
Yeah.
Right now, we have, because we're in the media and we're in the media age and we're getting a chance, there can be a false image of, I mean, you look at a show or you look at it and people are having to look a certain way in order to be able to be acceptable, and then get it pounded into us.
Yeah, it very much is, and you know, and I think more than ever we are leaning into more body positive movements. We're leaning more into conversations of substance around these relationships that we have with our body. And for me in my work, it's not letting go of the physical weight is what I call the little goal, really. And very much it's about understanding your why, like understanding your vision for who it is you seek to be. And so I just came across in my podcast this past week, I shared 3 lessons that I wish I had known, you know, sort of starting out in this journey. But one of the things that I sort of discovered in looking back through my own journals was my why and my vision. And it had nothing to do with the scale. It had everything to do with who I was expressing as in the world. Yes. And so, you know, I think as the more that we can redefine our measures of success, you know, the more that we can redefine how I feel in my body, that's really the litmus test for me. Do I feel like I can land here and be in this bodysuit? Can I land here and be in my heart? Can I land here and be consciously present and show up in my brightest light? And you don't have to have a certain size to do that. We're all these amazing expressions in this tapestry of all of that. But for women who feel like I feel stuck or heavy or weighed down, I mean, who are hungry for something more. Those are my women. Yeah. You know, I'm not looking for the quick fix. I'm looking to change my relationship with food and my body and how I move through the world.
Would Lara 10 years ago been able to hear this?
She'd want to.
You think that you could reach? Because we have to reach people where they are, not where they. So because I think about that.
Yeah, and yes, I mean, I would want to. I would hear it in one way. I would hear it at the heart. In the mind, it would be a little different, because there was still some of the dismantling that has to happen, and partly why I use some of the language that I do is very intentional, because when we're stuck in that letting go of the weight is this way, I cut calories and I move more, eat less, move more. When I have that paradigm, or I'm on MyFitnessPal, or I'm doing the latest thing, it's not sexy to hear that this is a slow process. Like that letting go of the weight is in a sustainable way is a slow process. I love
what you said about this, the little part. When people, no, that's the only part. Everything else, if I had that fixed,
Yeah.
I'd be fine.
But it's not, but that's the lie. Like that's the proverbial lie. Like that's the dangling carrot, because here's the thing, and this is the thing I had to really ask myself, is that if letting go of the weight, if that was that, letting go of that 20 pounds, let's say, on Weight Watchers or fill in the blank, I'm not knocking Weight Watchers, whatever diet it is.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter. If that really worked, wouldn't one of those diets have worked by now? Just one, instead of losing the 20 pounds and regaining it. But that's because there's a couple of reasons why that model doesn't work. One, it doesn't create sustainable changes because you're constantly thinking of it as I'm on the diet or I'm off the diet. Like it's always this on-off thing. It's not a continuum. I'm not focused on making 1% little bit better changes today. Yep. I'm not focused on how am I gonna, if I'm gonna eliminate this food today and then I'm gonna lose the weight, 20 pounds or fill in the blank, and then what happens after that? Yeah. Like what's the next step? Oh wait, I can go back to eating like I did, or I'm gonna take some nibbles, and then all of a sudden your 20 pounds is back.
Or the 20 pounds, I want to interrupt you there, is because once the 20 pounds is gone, then the feeling
of relief,
of going back, it doesn't, and we're back.
Yeah. Well, we're back because you haven't become a person who has made the changes to live at that new story.
Thank you.
And that's the work I do.
How do you sell that? Because that is a very, oh, now wait a minute. Now that's a lot of work.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I feel like my work is... I don't mean how do you
sell that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean that by selling in the sense of, because I can see your magnetism is palpable. Yeah. It really is. So I can see where you're going to be connecting with people, and you'll be able to. When I say sell it, I mean so that I understand from the very beginning. Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Understand this is a journey,
well,
and it doesn't matter where and what spiritual evolution that there is, and because you are so much on a spiritual path, and the teachings that you do is that it's a journey, not a destination.
Right. It is a hard sell. I mean, it's not the late night infomercial that's going to promise you, like these massive results. But as we grow in our consciousness on this earth, as we grow in our awareness of, I mean, hello, Marianne Williamson's running for president. Right?
I know.
So, I mean, as we grow in our awareness, I mean, look at what Oprah on a main scale, I mean, that's at the top, like at the little entry level of these conversations. But the more we start to take a pause and just ask ourselves, wow, is this old way really working?
Yep.
And I wonder if there's a new way. I wonder if there's a way at which this can be easy. I wonder if there's a way at which this can be fun. Because I can tell you, I haven't missed out on anything. I haven't missed out on any happy hours to let go of 40 pounds. I haven't missed out on anything. But what I have brought is this awareness and this consciousness of just making a little bit better mindful changes. A little bit like that 1% rule, right, of making that difference. So I think for the women who are ready for something more, my work is absolutely serving them very well.
I love that. I love that as a concept. I love that as a concept because when you talk about these little tiny incremental, I don't have anything that I have ever done in my life, Lara, that I have done in a great big change and sustained it.
Right.
It's always been incremental and incremental. But being willing to sit there and to go, okay, incremental was okay.
Yeah, it is, because the thing is that in the middle of those little changes, you become a person who lives at your new destination.
Yes, but I don't have to wait. I can live that
right.
now.
Well, and partly it's just neurology, right? We just have to trick our brains. I've been listening to the book Atomic Habits by James Clear. I've been listening to the Audible book. It's a fantastic book. But it's all about that idea of shifting our habituated patterns of our brain, because it's just a groove, right? It's just a cue of, I feel this feeling.
Yes.
It's a reward of, I'm going to eat the ice cream.
Yep.
And then it's just it's a habituated loop. And so that becomes the groove in your brain. And until you can introduce, and so, one of the best tools, like when I was in the midst of my own healing journey with food, There was a time in my life where I was feeling very stuck. It was around 2011. I had just moved to Austin, 2010-ish. And I would kind of go into this pattern of overeating. Like I'd have my dinner and then I would sit and just, I mean, all of a sudden it would just be like this carb frenzy of like popcorn and cereal and have some beers or walk across the street to Walmart, get some candy. Sure. And it just went on and on. And so as I would journal about it and I could introduce, you know, my tools that I had through my training, through my food psychology training, as I got clearer, what I realized I was craving was sweetness. More sweetness in my life. And I wanted that through connection. And at that time in my life, I was feeling really disconnected. I was in a brand new city. I didn't have a lot of friends. And I was like, this is your call to step forward and find new connections. And the more that I brought a level of just, okay, I'm in the middle of this, the more mindfulness you can bring to these unwanted behaviors that you're doing, the more attention you can bring, the more you can start to neutralize. And so before I knew it, I wasn't doing that anymore. I wasn't reaching for the popcorn because in those moments where I'd feel that, I'd call my friend. I'd call my mom. I would do something to interrupt that pattern of I don't need to just sit here and eat popcorn or candy or whatever in order to feel connected and to find sweetness. Yes. And so it's that level of understanding that's so simple, but it's healing you at a deep level, and that's the work that I do.
What a wonderful opportunity to talk with you today, because it's lovely to see you here.
Thank you.
Because it's a journey.
Yeah.
This is our opportunity that we're going to have to do this over the entire time. We don't get it. There is no shortcut.
Yeah, no.
There is just our continuing way. What a wonderful conversation.
Yeah,
thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I was going to ask you at the end, right before we cut off, was to tell me, is there anything that you had left out? But you didn't. You landed
I hit it.
The way the way you hit it was exactly the place. And I love the evolution that you spoke about. You didn't speak about specifically, but the evolution that you're talking about, your evolution with your higher power, whatever that means, is evolving.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a relationship there.
Oh, absolutely.
And it's so cool to watch.
Thank you.
It's so cool to be in your presence.
Thank you.
As you are being present.
Thank you. Yeah.
I hope you enjoyed that reasonably spontaneous conversation with Lara Zuehlke as much as I did. Isn't she amazing? Now let's move from the theoretical to the practical. And Lara's going to lead us through 5 exercises to boost our balance and energy.
So let me ask you a question. How do you take care of your energy? Often through the day, we're focused on things like food and water and exercise and all those key things that we need in order to feel good and lighten up in our worlds. But so often, if we're not really tuned into our energy, we can sort of miss those subtle cues that we're feeling low in our energy, that we're feeling sluggish. Today, we're going to look at several key energy exercises that you can do to lighten up, to clear your head, to be more focused, so that you can move through your day feeling great. So today we're going to talk a little bit more about energy. So what do I mean by energy? Energy is all around us. It's all within us. In fact, our body is a blueprint, right, of our energy field. Whatever happens in our energy field, or sometimes called auric field, happens first and then moves into our physical body, because our physical body is the densest layer of our energy field. And yet so often we're only trained and taught to take care of the physical body. We're not really taught how to take care of our energy body. So today we're going to look at several key exercises that you can do to take care of your energy. And so I'd like for you to think about it more like if you've been to yoga or you've heard about the chakras, right? So those are energy centers in your body where energy tends to pool and collect around our organs, around our bone structures like our hips, right? So those are all key energy centers in our body. Or if you've been to Reiki or acupuncture, then you've heard of perhaps meridians or acupressure points, right? So those are also part of our energy system. Meridians are like the channels by which energy moves through our body. But as we move through the day, we can get sluggish, we can get weighed down, we can feel heavy because of our energy field, right? Because our energy field is taking on energy from the world, is taking on energy from our technologies, right? Our phones and all those sorts of things. And so it becomes a question of how can I take better care of my energy? Well, today I'm going to show you a few key ways, very simple exercises. You can pretty much do these anywhere. I'd say just be in a place where you can feel comfortable and safe and just so that you can move freely. Are you ready? Let's go. Okay. So as we begin, I just invite you to take your hands to your chest as in the prayer mode. So just your hands together, right? You can even rub your hands together. This kind of gives you a sense of what I'm talking about when we talk about energy, right? So just rub your hands together, feel that heat and that warmth, and if you want, just pull your hands apart. Notice that energy, that movement, right? That subtle dance of energy that you feel. So as we begin, let's take a few deep breaths. We're going to breathe in deeply through our nose. We're going to exhale through our mouth. And as we do, I'd like for you to really envision that your feet are really anchored down into the earth. So if you can be barefooted, take your shoes off, really feel that energy, feel your body anchoring into the earth, and feel your spine really straightening up so your crown is on, right? Your crown's on and you're really fully aligned to the heavens. Okay, so let's take those hands to your chest, thumbs to your breastbone. Take a few deep breaths. Really exhale that out. Let's do 2 more. Good. Really feel that crown chakra opening up to the heavens. Good. So that's just our first exercise, right? That's just a grounding exercise that you can call mountain pose or whatever you like to call it. It's totally fine. So from here, we're going to move into what I call raising heaven. So what we want to do is just open up your stance just a little bit, still feet kind of hip width apart. Take your hands out, right, in the plane mode, so right beside your body, shoulders back. We're going to breathe in 3 big deep breaths also, right? So raising your arms up, looking up, let your eyes follow your arms. Butterfly those down, really feel your wings opening up. Let's do 2 more. Last one. Good. So this exercise that we're going to do now is called the 3 thumbs. And the idea of this one, again, is to bring more focus and clarity. It helps stimulate your immunity, and it also helps just re-energize and bring new energy to the body. Okay, so what we're going to do is to start here at your collarbone. So you want to find that bony part of your collarbone and come down about 1 inch and then go out about 1 inch and just start to press in. It will feel pretty tender, especially if you just feel really sluggish. It may feel really tender. What you want to do is just kind of massage this. This is called the K27 point, and it helps bring energy and focus to your brain so you can think more clearly. I like to do this one again if I'm working really hard, I'm in a meeting, I'm getting sleepy. It will help stimulate the energy in your brain. Okay, good. The second one of these is called tapping the thymus, right? So the thymus gland sits underneath your breastbone, and it is responsible largely for immunity and immune-related issues. So stimulating the thymus can actually help wake it up and help you boost your immune system. So again, come down from your collarbone and come down to the center part of your breastbone of your chest. You'll start to tap, you'll feel that little echo hollow. What you want to do is just tap pretty vigorously right here, again in the breastbone. You can kind of move it up, move it down. But again, this just helps awaken your thymus gland. It helps awaken your immunity so that you feel better. The last one of these is the spleen point. So the spleen, again, helps regulate the energy in your body. The spleen and pancreas work hand in hand, often very ignored little organ in the body. What you want to do with this one is come down, again, out from your chest, come down to the line of where your nipples are and go down just about, so you want to feel underneath your bra or right on the top of your rib cage and come down. Again, so think nipple line and out, just about an inch. Again, you can just rub vigorously. I just kind of rub the whole area because it usually feels pretty tender. You can tap it. Again, what we want to do is just to stimulate this point, because again, the spleen is responsible for energy production in the body, and it can help, again, reinvigorate your system. So this exercise is called infinity or figure 8, and it is really helpful when your body is especially not communicating, when you feel really stuck, really hyper, really low. This can be great for kids who can't seem to focus, because again, we're working across laterally to the body. So it's a great exercise to do when you're just feeling really stuck in your mind, you're trying to really hard to figure something out, or you're stuck really in your emotion and you're feeling really heightened emotion. So what you might want to do is, again, stand feet hip width apart. What I like to do is envision that I've got an imaginary ball, like a beach ball or a big ball, right? So again, arms kind of, shoulder width apart. And what we want to do is take the ball and move it. So think about an infinity symbol. We're going to move it up. We're going to bring our ball down. We're going to loop back up. We're going to bring it down. So we want to make these figure 8s across our body to feel that energy moving across our body. You can breathe. Breathe out. And you want to, this will help raise your energy, especially if you're feeling really sluggish. Just do this, again, 8 or 10 times. Lovely, you can do it. I've done this in bathroom stalls before when I'm driving and I'm feeling tired, because it can help just bring new energy to your system. And again, I always like to close with my hands in prayer mode. So the last exercise, again, is just really simple. It's called the crown pull. Sometimes when we're thinking a lot, we've got a lot going on, we're feeling like overwhelmed, we can develop a lot of energy in our brain, right? We just feel brain tired. So this exercise is just really helpful. It's really simple. Again, you can do this in your car, at a red light. You can do this at work. What you want to do is just take your thumbs here at your forehead and just kind of envision that you're pulling your crown. Again, pulling energy off. You want to start at your third eye and just pull. Envision you've got energy and you're just pulling it off. And you want to circle your whole head. Again, just envision with your little energy fingers any loose energy. Sometimes I like to envision it just like clouds or static, right? Static electricity, just pulling it off your head. I just like, or gremlins or, dust bunnies or whatever you like to envision. Just envision pulling that loose negative energy that's not serving you, and throw it down into the earth, right? Push it down into the earth, because you don't need it, and you don't need it clouding your head. So as we close, we want to just wrap it all up with a waterfall of white light. So we just want to breathe in deeply, feel that energy just anchoring down into the earth. Breathe in deeply. Breathe out. And then I want you to envision that you've got a beautiful waterfall of white light just cascading down over your body, running through your body, just sending any loose negative, any just final energy, just send that all back down into the earth, so you feel calmer and more grounded as you move through your day. So that's it, y'all. Just simple exercises that you can do wherever you are to feel better, to feel more calm and more grounded and all those good things. If you liked this video, be sure to like it, share it with your friends who could also benefit from a little energy tune-up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel so that you can get all the updates as they come on. Also check out the Fit Over 40 podcast. I've got links to everything down below, along with a typed out version of this sequence that we just went through that you can follow every day. I'd say do this at least once or twice a day. Allow yourself to feel better, to feel calmer, more grounded, so you can go rock it like the badass you are. I believe in you. I'll see you soon.